Hi, everyone. This is Melissa from Sagebrush Wellness. Welcome. I'm so glad you're joining me for this class. Experiencing this class is a prerequisite for anyone choosing to join our Diabetes Be Gone, a new beginning group program, focusing on reversing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. The goal of this group coaching program is to facilitate sustainable reversal of type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. We're going to be covering a whole lot of information in this class, busting some myths, and clarifying how this disease process works in the body. So please put away any conflicting activities and focus in on the information we are sharing today. Let's dive right in. Diabetes is a disease associated with consistently elevated blood glucose. In short, diabetes is truly an insulin issue. This is the accepted definition, right? I'm going to bust a myth right here at the beginning of this webinar. It is actually a condition in which the cells of our bodies suffer from insufficient action of insulin. Insulin is a very critical metabolic hormone, and I want you to really hear this. Insulin is a hormone, and we're going to touch on this again later. The issues with blood sugar are really just a symptom of diabetes, and the real issue is that the core problem, the inability of our body to process the amount of sugar coming in, exacerbates the symptoms, and the complication that we hear about so much is insulin. Blood glucose is the body's main source of energy and extracted from the foods we eat. Insulin, a hormone produced by the pancreas, then takes the glucose from broken down food and escorts it to the cells to be used as energy. Dysfunction occurs when the pancreas can't keep up with the sugar load coming into the body, or when the insulin isn't used efficiently. As a result, the glucose stays in the blood, does not reach the cells, or is not accepted into the cells, and is stored rather than used for energy. Let's talk about this process just a little bit more. The body, in its wisdom, knows that sugar in the blood is toxic, right? So when a sugar molecule exits the digestive tract and enters the bloodstream, insulin, like a little yellow taxi cab, picks up that sugar molecule and escorts it straight to the blood cells that are needing the energy. That it is up to the cells then to accept that sugar molecule or not. And we'll get more into this process later. But given the choice, the body prefers fat as fuel. But as long as there is sugar in the bloodstream, that is the priority. There is a safety mechanism in the body that shuts off the ability of the body to use fat for fuel if there is sugar to be used first, protecting us. Remember what we said about sugar in the bloodstream being toxic. This buildup of glucose in the blood can cause many other health problems. Can you guess what problems might arise? So diabetes affects nearly every aspect of one's body system. It increases the risk of the following health complications: cardiovascular disease, stroke, neuropathy, kidney disease, gastroparesis, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, glaucoma, cataracts, cognitive decline, and cancer. So let's take a moment to clarify the different types of diabetes. Excuse me. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease where the ability to make insulin is nearly entirely dismantled. The insulin-producing cells in the pancreas are damaged to the point of not being able to keep up with the sugar load in the body. Because this type of diabetes has an autoimmune component, my first question when working with a client who has this dynamic is, what is triggering this imbalance in the immune system? So, fun fact, Often when addressing this disease using food choices, whole body care, addressing root causes, and creating an environment of healing, the body can cope with this dynamic very well. It's kind of contrary to popular belief. Type 1 diabetes is generally managed by insulin injections or an insulin pump. But I have seen that by addressing the root causes of the immune system dysregulation, careful use of food and lifestyle choices, very minimal medication and insulin is needed to manage this disease. Once again, contrary to popular opinion. Recent research as well has been exploring different routes of reversal for this form of diabetes. And I'm going to actually read to you a link of a really good article that you might enjoy. So go to Chris, C-H-R-I-S, Kresser, KRESSER.com / could type 1 diabetes be reversible after all? I think you'll enjoy that article. Type 2 is primarily what we'll be focusing on today, and it absolutely can be reversed, and a person's numbers return to normal and stay that way. It's the form of diabetes where the body eventually begins resisting the effects of insulin. This is called insulin resistance. So what it actually is cells stop accepting sugar molecules or do not accept enough. Or the pancreas cannot produce enough insulin to maintain a normal blood sugar balance. So this type may require medicine, therapy while being addressed with lifestyle changes such as food choices, movement, sleep, and stress relief practices. Before the onset of diabetes, there's a stage called insulin resistance, right? So this is when the cells change their response to insulin. Let's draw a word picture here. Our cells use sugar as a primary source of fuel. When the cells have been bombarded repeatedly, sometimes for years, they become literally less receptive to insulin as a safety mechanism. Once again, our body's trying to protect us. Literally, the cell needs one sugar molecule at a time. And sometimes when the body is shoving 3, 5, or 10 at the same cell, after a while, the cells have to become more close to insulin. So, because insulin, once again, is the escort for that sugar molecule, and sugar in the bloodstream is toxic, in response to this, the pancreas begins to produce more insulin to bring blood glucose levels down. So sugar being forced into the cell walls beyond their capacity, this creates an excess. So the excess sugar is then converted into triglycerides. So recognize this word from your blood tests. This becomes one of the first indications of inflammation or insulin resistance. Notice that those are kind of interchangeable. They are really close, inflammation and insulin resistance. But what happens to the extra insulin that was produced, right? Once again, remember this is a hormone. All right, so it is found circulating in the blood as well. This can develop over a long period and is fueled by lifestyle choices, such as a poor diet or lack of physical activity. The cells will become increasingly more insulin resistant while insulin and glucose levels continue to rise. Eventually, the pancreas will be unable to react. Literally, it wears out in its heroic efforts to support your chosen food and lifestyle and will undergo significant damage. It's important to note that insulin resistance is always present before a diabetes diagnosis, sometimes 10 to 20 years prior. Insulin resistance can be present with normal blood glucose levels, but this increased demand for insulin leads to what is called pancreatic burnout. Signs of insulin resistance include fatigue after meals, constant hunger, unquenchable thirst, or just unrealistic thirst, you can't get enough water, heightened cravings for sweets, and difficulty losing weight. Unfortunately, this is fairly common. 1 in 3 Americans, including half of those age 60 and older, have insulin resistance. To know the prevalence of something so damaging yet avoidable is very disheartening. Just as a side note, I see this dynamic often in the clients that I serve who have autoimmune conditions. Remember, we're talking about insulin here, which is a hormone, part of our beautiful hormone dance that's happening in our body every moment of the day. Increased insulin in the blood speeds up the progression of diabetes as well as a host of other health issues. Stay tuned, we'll be explaining some of those next. So let's kind of dissect what are some of the roles of insulin, besides just being the yellow taxicab for sugar molecules. So insulin is, it is one of the things that increases the liver, muscle, and fat tissues uptake of glucose. So what this looks like can be non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It increases fat storage. This is also a body's way of protecting you. It increases glycogen or stored glucose synthesis. It increases amino acid uptake by the cells. It also increases potassium uptake. It decreases the breakdown of proteins. So when this process is decreased, it impairs the ability of the body to take on foods that support healthy hormone balance and production. It decreases the breakdown of fat. So fat is our body's preferred fuel source, right? Often by the time this is happening, the liver and gallbladder have been affected and the bile flow is not happening optimally. So what does this mean? I mean, really, understanding the roles of insulin, we can easily see how insulin resistance is associated with the following health concerns. I apologize for my phone ringing. It will just have to ring. So here are some of the health concerns: metabolic syndrome, chronic kidney disease, coronary heart disease, Alzheimer's, polycystic ovarian syndrome, so PCOS, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, and lupus. So what are some of the other players in the insulin resistance puzzle? Obesity, specifically increased visceral or abdominal fat, once again the body protecting you. High amounts of free fatty acids in the blood. These can be very damaging to the cell walls, but these are critical to our wellness. If the body is not breaking them down well so they can be used, free fatty acids are not helpful. This is interconnected with our digestive tract health and how our food is being broken down and absorbed. High intake of added sugar, not the sugar naturally occurring in fruit. High fructose corn syrup in its many forms are the primary culprits here. So white sugar, high fructose corn syrup, those are quite not good. Increased oxidative stress and inflammation. This is often a root cause of autoimmune activation and a direct result of insulin resistance. Prolonged inactivity. So if you don't have any energy to get up and do something, it's really hard to get up and think about, working out or taking a walk or taking the dog out and, going around the block. Compromised gut microbiome. Okay, this one is absolutely huge. It's also a root cause of autoimmune disease activation. So many times I see this with an overgrowth of bacteria that's feeding the hormone imbalance and triggering the immune response. Smoking and chewing tobacco. These both are really hard on your pancreas. Habitual overeating. So this has gotten a bad rap, right? Especially somebody who is overweight. A lot of people looking on will make just the assumption that, oh my gosh, they have no willpower. And I want to tell you that is so not true. Because when the body is not getting the nutrition that it needs, whether it's a breakdown in the digestive system or some real nutrient depletion that's gone on, your body is asking for food. to be able to try to fill in those nutrition gaps. And unless those needs are being met, your body's going to keep asking for more food. So just keep that in the back of your mind, that habitual overeating is not necessarily just, something that, this person is having trouble saying no. That's probably not true. It's probably because their body is having serious issues with nutrition. Oh, I apologize for that phone again. All right, so let's move on. There are several evidence-based ways to prevent and reverse insulin resistance, hence the development of diabetes guidelines that I will be sharing with you in this second half of the webinar. So many of these strategies are also well known as protection against most diseases and the promotion of overall health. And I'll just run through, well, I have quite a little list of these. So the first is maintain a healthy weight, particularly by losing weight around the abdominals. Sometimes this is hard, like really hard, and it may involve investigating what foods are causing inflammation in the digestive tract and working to heal the gut lining, and understanding the thought processes and stressors that brought you to this place, and then change your behavior around that. Implement a healthy, balanced diet that supports your goals of recovery. This is probably something that, if you really thought about it, you know exactly what foods are going to support you. Exercise regularly. Sometimes this is just a one foot in front of the other situation, especially at the beginning. Quit smoking. This is a hard one, but this habit puts an enormous strain on the pancreas. Eliminate sugar intake. Notice I said eliminate. I didn't say reduce. White processed sugar and high fructose corn syrup are quite simply toxic to the body. We don't need them. Eliminate all grains for a period of 3 months. Eliminate all dairy for 3 months. Take supplements that support digestion and hormone balance. Improve sleep quality. Sleep hygiene is pivotal. Manage stress. This can be mental, emotional stress, or it can be physiological stressors in the form of bacterial overgrowths, viruses, yeast infections, heavy metals in the body, or a toxic load. Be aware of your blood glucose, especially when you begin making changes to your food choices and the inflammation in the body begins to go down. Your sugar is going to fluctuate quickly, so please check your sugar often. As your need for meds decreases, have your doctor work closely with you to reduce those medications as needed. All right, so how do you know if the prevention or treatment methods you're working on are actually in your favor? Is it working for you? It's pretty discouraging to go to a lot of effort and not know if it's working, right? So let's talk about this. Let's talk about how we can actually measure this. So blood glucose testing is an incredible tool to monitor blood sugar shifts and how different foods and activities impact said levels. Doing this regularly and correctly helps the evaluation of how effective the treatment measures you're using are. So having an up-to-date blood glucose monitor is actually a prerequisite for my clients in the Diabetes Be Gone and New Beginning group coaching program, especially during the first month when their bodies are beginning to recover rapidly. Keeping a close eye on blood glucose levels is critical. Another way to see if what you're doing is working is to do a new set of blood work at the beginning of your program, and that includes CBC, a CMP, and fasting glucose and an A1C. After 3 months, do another set of blood work and see where your numbers are. Because we're addressing the whole body and especially inflammation in the Diabetes Be Gone group coaching class, we are also going to be doing a KBMO food sensitivity test. And this is speaking directly to inflammation in the body. Up next, we'll be discussing the impact of various lifestyle changes on diabetes progression. So the importance of weight management. Sometimes this is a real fight for folks, and I get it. I get it. And there's always a reason why, right? So as the trend of obesity increases, so does the diabetes epidemic. This is no coincidence. Food choices and movement are a large piece of this, but not all. The why behind this trend is different for each person. I'm really excited about sharing this next piece. I love getting to really dig into what is the gut doing. It is indeed, gut dysbiosis is indeed the basis for any disease. So let's talk through this. Bacteria plays a major role in disease, including diabetes. We often regard our gut health as a separate entity reserved for matters of our digestive health, right? But our microbial balance within our digestive system is incredibly influential to our overall health. Did you know that gut health is linked to diabetes specifically by the autoimmunity dynamics present in the disease? For example, type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease, meaning the immune system becomes dysregulated and shuts down insulin-producing cells. Research on type 2 diabetes, however, is finding more evidence on autoimmunity as well. Autoimmunity in all forms is commonly linked to gut permeability, or more commonly known as leaky gut. That being said, the key to health, and in this case, not having diabetes, is through the gut. There are so many ways to boost gut health, including, and this is kind of a short list, addressing food allergies and sensitivities. And this is why our group program uses the KBMO food sensitivity test. This is a very key piece. Choose an anti-inflammatory diet. Inflammation is at the very heart of the diabetes disease dynamic. Replenish the body with essential nutrients. Because of imbalances in the gut, the raw materials needed to produce hormones are not available. Stay adequately hydrated. This is really key, especially during the recovery phase as well as the maintenance phase. Unsurprisingly, many of these tactics are used to combat diabetes specifically. Is it all coming together for you in your mind? Are you starting to see the interconnectedness between what's happening in your whole body? So let's talk about food as medicine. And this is kind of, I'm going to say, kind of a little phrase that's becoming very popular, but it's very true. With numerous diets that claim to be the answer to your diabetes, it's hard to pick the right one for you when they often conflict with each other. Quite frankly, that's why I don't suggest diets. What your body needs is completely different than your neighbor who also has diabetes. We are beautifully individual. And to successfully, sustainably reverse diabetes for each person, we really embrace this fact. So here are some bedrock principles that are significant. Just as a reminder, insulin is one of the only hormones that we have the power to control, and it begins with our fork. So here are just some key things to think about. Food timing. How frequent are you eating, and what are the size of your meals? I would like you to do something for me, not right now, but when we're finished with the webinar, I want you to look up migrating motor complex. So this action in the digestive tract is literally our bodies doing housekeeping in the digestive tract between meals. This is key to a healthy digestive system and a foundational concept for addressing imbalances like SIBO, which is small intestinal bowel overgrowth. And, excuse me, leaving 3 to 4 hours of no food between meals really is, what can I say, this is a way to really combat bacterial imbalance in the gut. So this flies in the face of some of the common instructions given, right? We're taught that if you have diabetes, that you need to eat small meals to keep your blood sugar level. This habit is actually causing bacterial overgrowth and not giving the body time to clean house, exacerbating one of the root causes of diabetes. So just to kind of dig into this a little bit more, when we first began a diabetes reversal program, one of the main things that we do is work hard on providing protein in the beginning and the middle of the day. Protein, remember, and fats are our body's preferred fuel source. So we have to get this in place before we start spreading the meals out, because proteins and fats give us a long, slow, steady burn so that you don't have a sugar dump, 2 to 3 hours from when you've eaten last. So second thing we need to do is stop eating inflammatory foods. The most common are processed foods. That's anything pre-made or comes in a box. And then we need to stop eating sugar, gluten, and dairy. Gluten and sugar are probably something that will not reintroduce. Possibly dairy can come back in. We need to address food sensitivities. So often there's a little bit of confusion around this, but food sensitivities, much like food allergies, can cause inflammation and immune dysregulation. So let's break this down a little bit. A food sensitivity causes an inflammatory response in the body by causing a low-level immune system activation. The results of this can linger in the body for up to 10 days. For some foods, even longer. So let's say that gluten causes an inflammatory response in your body, but you only eat it once a week. Typically, the inflammatory response from gluten can last anywhere from 7 to 10 days. So even though you're only indulging once a week, your body never has a chance to rest from the inflammation, and that said inflammation becomes perpetual. That's when it turns into a disease dynamic. All right? Up next, we'll be discussing more specifics on recommended food choices and how they can serve you best. So we've heard a lot about all kind of different diets, and I don't do the diet thing. Each of us needs our own mix of foods. Each body is so individual that we can't just say, well, you can say, but it doesn't mean that it's going to work. Just say this is the diet you need to do to reverse diabetes. So instead of looking at it as a diet, I want to give you some just foundational principles, okay? So increase good fat intake, and I'm going to give you a website address that is going to give you a great list for this. So go to drax.com/nutrition/healthy fats. Increase fiber, preferably from vegetables, anything green and colored, like peppers, tomatoes, carrots, lettuce, any kind of herbs. These things are really, really nutrition dense. Create more vitamin and mineral absorption. This is helpful if the impaired gut health has been addressed first. So one of the core concepts in our Diabetes Be Gone coaching program is to really heal that leaky gut and make sure that your body's actually able to break down and absorb the food that you're taking in. Increased water intake. This is a really, really huge, especially in the first phase, the recovery phase of diabetes reversal, because as we're changing so many things in the body, especially in the gut, your body has to be able to really flush that through. Find and eliminate what is causing inflammation in the body. This is another core concept in our program. Completely eliminate sugar intake. And if you're wondering, okay, that sounds great, but how am I going to substitute that? So here's another list for you. Go to Dr. Axe again, drax.com/nutrition/sugar substitutes. All right, implement 3 to 4 hours between food. This is huge. Ensure that your body is producing great stomach acid, digestive enzymes, and bile. So this is something that is often very compromised. And it's one of the deep dives that we do for the participants in the Diabetes Be Gone coaching program. Often when this piece is in place, the body is able to accelerate its healing journey. Many of the studies supporting all of these lists are included at the end of this presentation with all the appropriate links. And if you're wanting to have a list of those, I'd be happy to share those with you via email. Just send me a request. It's unfortunate that the most abundant anti-nutrient in our diets wreak havoc on our health. There have been strong links between the increasing presence of sugar in our food supply with the prevalence of diabetes in our world today. So there were 2 doctors that really worked together on research of the close connection of sugar and diabetes. They were Dr. Sanjay Basu and Robert Litzig. So what they found was really alarming, but maybe not so surprising. More sugar means more diabetes. For example, for every 150 calories of sugar per person per day, diabetes rose by 1% in the population. This figure was present even with controlling factors of obesity, physical activity, and overall caloric intake. To put this in perspective, one 12-ounce can of soda has approximately 150 calories of sugar. As you can see, the rate of diabetes is rising rapidly in this figure alone. Sugar is not a friend to you or me in any form. Diabetics are often deficient in many nutrients the body needs to function properly. Remember what we talked about earlier about the leaky gut and impaired digestion, right? A few of the most common nutritional needs of those with diabetes, regardless of type and stage, include, you might want to write this down, alpha lipoic acid, or ALA. So this nutrient is anti-inflammatory. It's an antioxidant and responsible for helping turn sugar into energy within the cells. Magnesium. This mineral is responsible for energy production and nerve function. Excuse me. According to the American Medical Association, an estimated 50% of the US population is deficient in magnesium. If you're specifically struggling with constipation, I would suggest magnesium citrate. If not, I would suggest a product called MagMind or magnesium taurine. Zinc. Zinc is especially important to the proper functioning of the pancreas and the immune system. B vitamins. All of the B vitamins play an integral role in the body's many processes. One role in particular important to diabetic health is carbohydrate metabolism. So, fun fact, these are also the building blocks for hormone production and balance. See, more interconnection, right? Insulin is what? It's a hormone. An easy way to think of hormones is that they are messenger molecules, right? They're constantly informing our body of the state of our world, both inside and out. Chromium. Chromium helps to make insulin receptor sites more sensitive to insulin. So insulin receptor sites are actually located on the cell wall. In turn, fighting the issues of insulin resistance. Another great help here is berberine. This is an herb. It can really help encourage the cells to open up again and accept sugar to support metabolism. There are also great herbal mixes as well that include a mix of vitamins and minerals to support glucose balance. Because everyone's nutritional needs are highly individualized, I recommend you consult with a functional medicine practitioner for appropriate lab work and consultation. This is going to be a big help to you. Regular movement, particularly high intensity Interval training has shown to provide significantly lower insulin levels and in turn, diabetes complications. But how? So we're going to break this down a little bit. Movement burns fat, which aids in weight management, and a decrease in the fat cells' demand for insulin. The key here is to not have sugar in the bloodstream. Remember, we talked about the body's mechanism to block use of fat when blood sugar is present in the blood. Movement increases the sensitivity of insulin receptors, which lowers blood glucose and insulin demand. Movement helps your body's detoxification system and mobilization of toxins through your lymphatic system. This is a key piece of how your immune system has to fire to be able to care for these toxins. Movement activates over 500 genes in the body and allows for more efficient utilization of hormones such as insulin. Movement helps to control hunger, decreases food cravings, and the regulation of the body's energy storage. Exercise just makes you feel good. One of the things, once again, back to hormones, it really helps release endorphins into your bloodstream. So think about it. What is your favorite way to get moving? 90% of doctor visits can be connected to chronic stress in some way. It makes sense when you consider that all disease is impacted by stress, and diabetes is no different. Stress has 3 different ways it can impact an individual: physically, chemically, and emotionally, or a combination of any of the 3. Stress affects diabetes specifically by decreasing insulin receptor sensitivity, raising cortisol levels. So cortisol is a stress hormone that in turn calls for more insulin. Interconnectedness again. This can cause sugary, gluten, or dairy food cravings, more commonly known as comfort foods, because they can actually give us a dopamine hit. And in some people, they can have an actual high. Rising blood sugar. This can happen as a stress response, but it can also happen as a pain response. Fortunately, there are many ways to manage stress. What is your favorite stress relief? Inadequate sleep leads to metabolic damage. Glucose imbalance, increased food cravings, and breeds many of the risk factors associated with many diseases, including diabetes. Studies have linked sleep quality to the prevalence and degree of insulin resistance. The results prioritize 8 to 10 hours of high-quality sleep to reduce cellular inflammation and insulin dysfunction. So, especially for those of you who are thinking of joining our group coaching, sleep hygiene is hugely important in the recovery phase. And we work on that quite extensively because this is kind of a foundational, pivotal piece. As we wrap up, I hope that this webinar has been insanely helpful to you. We covered what diabetes looks like in the body, what some specific drivers are, and simple but powerful ways to address it. I'd like to invite you to participate in our Diabetes Be Gone New Beginning group coaching program. I've created 2 different levels of coaching to help fit your budget. So the first is general group coaching. So what comes with this is you'll get an initial consultation with me, which includes an in-depth review of KBMO and blood test results. We'll be using the symptoms questionnaire and health history, and I will be creating a very detailed map of your case. This is probably something that you've never experienced before. This is something that I love to do for my clients because it really puts into perspective what their body is experiencing now as a whole beautiful organism, but how they got here, right? And it really helps some pieces to fall into place. As a result of that, you'll get personal recommendations for food and lifestyle changes and a mapped out course for the program. Then we will be having bi-weekly group coaching calls, which include 20 minutes of education and 40 minutes of Q&A and individual coaching in a group setting. We'll be doing a lot of goal setting for you guys and holding each other accountable. We'll be working with roadblocks, like, because when you're changing habits, right, and you're changing how you're living your life, it can be pretty rough. And so I'll walk beside you through that. You'll also be getting food plans, recipes, ideas, and working through mindset and any hang-ups that come up. So the group coaching is going to be 3 months long. That's typically how long it takes to work with just diabetes, type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes, to return the numbers to normal. One thing just the simple group coaching does not include is individual sessions with me. Those can be booked with me at my normal hourly rate. There's also the small group coaching option. So that is for those who would like to work more closely with me, or if you have a lot of different dynamics going on, like if you've got an autoimmune condition or a couple of them alongside your diabetes. So everything that we just talked about will be accessible to you, but we'll be breaking down into small, intimate groups. So the max number of people in a group will be 8. These members will be part of the larger group coaching, like I said, with all the perks, but our small groups will be meeting on the off weeks. We'll meet bi-weekly, and the beauty of these small groups is that I can closely support each member, and the group actually becomes a family that supports each other, not just during the 3-month program, but as we walk on through life, right? Excuse me. Complete one-on-one options are always available. This is what I offer to my, wow, excuse me, my clients anyway. But this is something that I would recommend for you if you've got diabetes, but you've got some pretty serious other disease dynamics in the mix. So for example, right now I'm working with a gal that has been diagnosed with 9 other autoimmune conditions and diabetes, type 2 diabetes, pretty severely. So I would suggest that if you're in that camp, that you might want to think about the one-on-one option. So if you're interested in joining us, please contact me at sagebrushwellness@gmail.com, and we'll put something on the calendar. I'd love to just sit down with you for about 20 minutes and be able to answer questions and get to meet you, and for you to meet me and just really talk through what would be the best course of action going forward if you want to join us, or if you just need some questions answered. So thank you so much, and let's see. Yes, here's a list of the resources that I put together for this presentation. If you want to have these links, please email me once again at sagebrushwellness@gmail.com. I'd be happy to do that for you. So thank you again, and happy recovery. Enjoy your day. Take care.